First of all, as everyone sort of have felt, the uptick is real. I think there definitely the activities are starting to resume, and our contract volume is growing day by day, and that's now is about a month past the initial relaxation of the shelter in place, and a lot of state probably by June will be open. So that's really good news, and I'm hoping this continues to grow, and you guys will be more successful in engaging more clients and closing them. Um, Also, the energy market obviously indicates that there's slight surge of demand, and that sort of indicates in the oil prices. If you haven't followed, it's now about $34. So quite an improvement since a month and a half ago. Um, let's talk about this variable selling feature and see how we can utilize this. So I actually brought up these windows. By the way, this topic was covered once, but I think it's such an important topic. It's a sales technique, and a lot of people are inquiring about how to address customers that are variable and bring it to the fixed, and vice versa. How can we take a customer that pays a fixed price to a variable price, and what is the benefits of each? Obviously, variability is risky, and the only downside for a variable price is when the market greatly jumps, and suddenly the customer gets stuck into a 2-3 months that sacrifices and compromises all their savings. So that's essentially the goal, is like buying an insurance, and you want to protect yourself from those few months that the spikes is massive, and it happens, right? So our job is to display that properly to the customer, that if you see a market that is not very volatile, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be the case, and the price always moves. And when it's jumping on a trend upward, then it's too late to almost like lock in something that's reasonably saving him dollars. So it's a matter of judgment of when to enter into a fixed contract view and a variable contract to kill risk. On the other hand, obviously some customers are on a fixed price, and there may be a feeling that the prices are hyperinflated, or the premiums are too high because there's less chance of actually market going up. So that's an area that you may want to just bring down the premium and take the customer from a fixed price to a variable price. And in both stories, the price, the commission, or the revenue for the contract is the same, because, as I said, the margins you can put the same amount of margin on a fixed or variable product. Doesn't matter. It's just a matter of how to convince the customers that a fixed price will be beneficial for them, because it would protect them from the surges in rates. And that's sort of what we want to cover today. And the other way around, obviously, it also applies, but we covered the scenario one today. As I said, this conversation was covered partially in 2 weeks ago, but I think, as I said, it's worth another visit, and it was requests from the same participant to go over this one more time. So here we go. So if you essentially go to our, we talk about a matrix, and that same conversation applies to any type of variable product, and gas and electric, custom or matrix. Whatever method you sell, whatever product you sell, wherever you sell, variability is treated the same way. And here is a Chicago market. I just pulled an example. I just prepared it to save us some time. And I went ahead and I selected the index. Let's talk about this. First of all, when you talk about index, it's such a niche product that I would say price comparison is less of an important matter. That's why we started to actually perfecting this to build infrastructure for saving analysis. As you can see, this function here is being built and rebuilt to display proper savings with estimation. But I'll show you how to, in the meantime, work with the numbers and data in order to present savings to your customers. But this is an example where the 24-month index contract with NG the first supply that we have offered on the matrix. And custom, you can essentially get the offer from anyone, the larger account. But on the smaller scale, we also have like matrix offers. And this is an NG product, 24 months index adder only, which means that this will be the adder on top of all the other components. And we shall discuss what the other components are to be added to this 1 cent. What is this 1 cent? This 1 cent is essentially 5 mils or half a cent the broker has added in this example, and the 5 mils or half a cent that the supplier has published as their fee. So 5 mils and 5 mils total, 10 mils or 1 cent. So that is the adder. That's what we are bidding on. So you got the 1 cent, and now we want to predict what the supply charge for the customer will be. For that reason, we go to our market analytics right here, open this up. I already have opened that section and ran a chart, and that's for the territory comment. I put a customer that is typically use this example. It can be any number that makes sense. I use 200,000 kilowatt hours and 50 kilowatt of PLC, peak load contribution. We've discussed peak load contribution, and that's a number that is essentially on the bill of the customer. You can find it, or at least a proxy of it. And with that number and the usage, the annual usage, we can start looking at the projections of components. So a couple of things. First of all, the 3 components that are colored here, the most important component, about 6% is the green, 41% is the orange, and 52% is the blue. But this is about 95 or 6% of the total supply cost. So you're looking at 95% of the price being the sum that is displayed here. Another 4 or 5%, let's say overestimating 5%, depends on the market. Obviously, there are other components like cost of renewables and auction costs and things like that. So those numbers still exist. So we would say 95% is what we see here. And then there's extra 5% surcharge we will add. And then on top of that, we add the adder. So let's look at this chart and write down some numbers to build an example for. Okay, so we are right now May 26th, essentially right here, as you can see, and the numbers are published. It comes as a sum of 3.69. What does that mean? You see the billable capacity for this customer is 1.72. So we have 1.72. The white screen, if you look at it, you can even run this example yourself. But let me see if I can maximize my screen for a second. All right. Okay, so this is a good place. I put my mouse on that point at May 26th, and I can move it into the future as far as the capacity sort of predicted. And I can read numbers. This is 510, 494, 394, 412, but I see like 369 and upward trend. That's the story of upward trend. So obviously what is clear is if you contract a customer right now at 369 base with all the surcharges, if they come at 5, in about 4 or 5 months, they will be at 510. That's essentially 1.4 cents increase in price because you can see the difference. But that's, again, it's a projection from the CME market and what's being traded currently. Every day will change. But let's build this example for a customer. We want to do saving analysis. So I pick a day, and I would come in with this 369. So as I said, 369 is no adder included. 369 cents is the sum of the 3 main components. in this chart right here, the energy, the capacity, and ancillary. On top of that, I will add 5% surcharge. As I said, I give you average. There are components that are not in this, and those are smaller components. They're not significant, and there's like 8 or 9 of them. But let's say it's 5%, and that would essentially give me extra 5% charge, which come back to 369 divided by 95 becomes 388. So we're looking at 388. If you add that 5% missing components, that's an estimate. As I said, that's typically harder to track in every market. Every market is different, but there are fees that are associated with the supply, and market by market, they're different. But the most important one is the auction cost and the renewable cost of the energy. And those are part of the supply cost. So 369 base, read from this place right here, this number, 369, May 26, 369 becomes 388 by adding that 5% extra component. And now 388 is, I would say, the supply cost without any fees for either the brokers or the suppliers or service charges. Now we're adding that. Go back to the previous screen that we were at. Let me just shrink the window and look at this. So we have 388 and we have this 1 cent 24-month index adder cost, 1 cent. So we get that 1 cent and add it to 388. We're expecting a price of 488 for this customer. So you get that for 388, as I mentioned, add 1 cent to it. 488 is the price today, which is this point. Now, with the same methodology, you can build price for every month, actually every day, but this is actually month by month. This is March, and you can aggregate for each month. The way that we can do it, actually, we need the data. So as I explained before, you can export this with this function into an Excel right here, and you can see the ancillary, capacity, energy charges. And as I mentioned before, all you have to do is take in these components and putting them next to one another. I take the ancillary too, and I make 3 columns here. This is energy, this is capacity, this is ancillary, and this one is sum. Sum. So I take this, take this, take this. That's for 21. That's for 2021. A month, May, that's estimated. And we call it supply. As I said, there's extra 5% surcharge. So you take that number and divide it by 95%. That becomes 443. So this is really supply without additional fees. Now, supply all in, we add another extra cent because that was the number we read from the quote page of Matrix. As you're selling a Matrix product for this particular customer. So you have an energy, you have capacity, and ancillary. Only 3 components. That's about 95% price. That's why we sum it up in this column. And then we can build it day by day. That's what you sort of like show the customer, right? You sort of show the customer every day what they are expecting. Summit, supply. This is the sum of the 3 components. Then we have the 5% surcharge here, extra 5%, and then we add this adder and become 543, and you can build it up month by month. You can see in this case, we are sitting at 388 in the short term, and I can actually go back and look at the point that we are at. We are in 2020, month 6. Look at it. This is about the time. This is it. 390, 527, right? 390 is what we are today, but you can see it's sort of like fluctuates and then expected to go to 4 and then 4.3 and all the way here you can see 420, you can see 5s, and that's the variability, right? From 3.8 all the way to 5.30 or 40, that's just based on the market projection. I mean, you're not even talking something crazy happening. This is just the market, the normal market and what's known. But the real tragedies come when these numbers are even hyper jumping and even higher than that, and suddenly you see a 7 and 8 cents. That's a real loss. So the same philosophy that sells insurance to a buyer, health insurance or life insurance, same philosophy should sell a premium for a index product to make it fixed, because as I said, most people don't like high risks, and if the energy spending is high, they may not want to necessarily deal with it. And that's really the philosophy behind going after a fixed price, even if you're paying index and your fixed cost comes in at, let's say your index price is 420 on your bill and you see a bid that is 5 cents or 5.1. The reason is because you're not going to see any of these jumps. And in this example, we see like 14 mils jump, which is way more than that 7, 8 mils that is going to be additional on the bill, immediate bill, because it just protected you for 3 years, and that's the unforeseen future. So absolutely, that's exactly the point of selling a fixed price when you forecast a increase in the rate. And that's the example we just ran, was completely clearly picturing that scenario where 388 base jumped into 5.2, and this is a real example. These are the trading data from CME, Chicago Mercantile Dollar Exchange, where the blocks of energy being traded. So yes, that's the true answer. And yeah, most of the time index products, and there's a reason that fixed product comes more expensive, and it should be, because as I said, there's protection plus the current market. That's always that's always the fact that you have to pay premium to kill volatility. That cannot be denied. Yes, Houston market, we don't have the capacity components and other components. It's an energy only market. All the costs are associated with energy. The only thing that we are actually gathering right now is the line losses and the losses between the hubs and the zones, which we're working actually on gathering that data and presenting it, Ben. So I don't want to throw a number, but this is in a 4 or 5 mils for small customers that I have seen, but we are actually focusing on finding that information from ERCOT and gathering it and putting it into platform. It's a great point. And I know that Texas market is, in some senses, a little bit simpler, as I said, because there's not a lot of components. But to see that congestion cost from zone to hub is to be found and displayed. But that's a project that's going on. As I said, this is a very fundamental and comprehensive project, and we're going to do, even Canada markets are now displayable. I know Ontario is also mapped, and we have that in Ontario, but yeah, some couple elements are missing, and one of the elements that we don't yet have a systematic data on is the line losses in Texas. So I promise to put that as a priority to get that data for you. So, and typically the way that it works, we use the historical and the projection either come from predictive models, or sometimes there's actually trading, and there's some futures for those losses that to essentially secure it. And either way, we will find a way to sort of come up with some sort of forecast for you to use. And yeah, that's a project that's actually going on. So let's talk about other products. I just talked about the simplest variable product that has nothing fixed in it. Everything is passed through. This is very extreme example where you're talking about, I'm not fixing anything as a supplier. All I give you is 1 cent adder, 5 mils for me, and you request the broker 5 mils and 5 plus 5, 10 mils and 1 cent. That's the adder. That's the only thing you're bidding on. Everything else is passed through. So in this example, everything was passed through. So that's why I use this projection for every one of those components, right? And then I added my adder on top of that. So there are other products. Let's talk about 2 other products, and I'm going to also talk about gas, and that's sort of would be the end of our call. So I'm going to be a little quicker to cover it, and it's simple. So you can essentially come in and say any of these can be also fixed. So you can request a bid called energy only, where essentially this blue, only the blue, energy only, this is energy, would be fixed. So when you get a bid, let's say that bid comes back, we had this, in this case, we had 1 cent. Let's say that 24 month will be 1 plus 4 because the energy only will be 5 cents. The bid come back at 5 or 4, whatever number is. Let's say 5 cents. So 4 plus 1, 5 cents. The bid comes back at 5 cents. That's energy only bid. Now, what is missing is the other 2 components, the orange and the green. So in this chart, I'm going to take this out. This is variable, right? I'm going to take this out, and let's say 4. Actually, I'm going to take this out. We don't need energy. Energy is going to be like bid. Capacity is here, ancillary is here. Now, capacity, ancillary. Now, we have insert a column, and the energy bid, energy only bid, to come back at 4 cents. All right. Now the sum of those would be $5.92. This is a projection. Again, I just came up with a number, so that may be very overestimated, the 4 cents, the energy only, but I assume it's 4 cents. The other 2 components to be added, capacity and ancillary, because as I said, the energy is now not variable. But ancillary and capacities are variables to be added. So we added that to the bid 4 cents, and that's the sum. And now we have this, that 5% additional missing that it would be included. And this is also irrelevant at this point because, as I said, we already added it here. I just changed the column for the display purposes. But again, I want to just make you acquainted with the knowledge right now. I'm not focusing on the presentation because presentation will be part of that that quote sheet. You would, as I said, there's a placeholder already, and we're working on it. This right here would give you the proposal. You download it right there, and this product will be analyzed for you. We have a chart, but it's not exactly fully validated, but it will be displaying the savings for you. So that's the goal. But for now, I'm just going through the methodology in case you wanted to talk to the customer. The data is available, and you can still use it. So capacity and ancillary in this case are pass-through. Energy's bid is fixed, and then you sum the 3. And that's essentially the supply cost. Another product is capacity pass-through, where capacity is the only thing that is pass-through. And ancillary is fixed too. Now, this column will be deleted too, because our bid will be, for example, 4.2 for capacity pass-through bid. Then you got these components will be added. You would sum these 2 components and come up with a number since you estimated for every day. Actually, I messed it up here. I think I did something goofy, but doesn't matter. I think you get the gesture. I can just I did something goofy here, but anyways, the point is the capacity in this case will be passed through. Everything else will be a bid. So you get a bid that includes everything except capacity. That this column will be the same number. This column will be a variable. and the sum would be the sum of the two. Just, I mean, anytime you deal with it, anytime you introduce a fixed offer to a customer, there is a risk that your customers pay the price if the market have a jump, and that jump would be reflected in the bill because you have not put the premium to kill that risk for them. And what I just explained, as I mentioned at the beginning, can be used in both ways. I just showed you how to compare the one side of the equation. You may want to take the customer away from the index, or you may want to put them in the index. Either way, you need to project the performance of the index, right? So if you have a customer that is on the index, this is how you project their current status. That's how you project how their bill will go up over time, because there is movement in every one of those three components. And you put a scientific number on it and make him understand that if you see 4.2, that doesn't mean anything. And if you're offering a 36-month contract, you should have the ability to project for 36 months in order to make it apple to apple, at least comparable. So that's what we just did. We just made that index into a presentable and understandable format for customers to sort of be able to start understanding what you're doing. And ultimately, the answer comes from the customer, whether they believe in the uptick, whether they just want to write it. Either way, this is a way for you to engage your customers and make them at least understand either product you want to sell them, why they're purchasing it. And I think it's always more legit and more convincing to put those numbers for them and to have them in your hand. I think is valuable. One more thing, and even simpler than what we discussed, is the gas offering. So let's go back to this chart and take a look at gas. And I'm just going to look at the Louisiana and Henry Hub forecast for a second, and I tell you why. So the most popular product that we're bidding on in our auction for gas, besides fixed all in, is a NYMEX adder. Or sometimes you see NYMEX adder customers and you want to take them away and put them on a fixed product. So NYMEX adder bid, as the name implies, is the adder on top of the NYMEX. The NYMEX itself is not included as a commodity. That is in question. So if you get a NYMEX adder, let's look at I'm just making an example up, and I assume in state of New Jersey, the adder, NYMEX adder bid comes back at 30 cents. And now you want to build the fixed all-in price to compare it with the fixed all-in offer. Either they're on or you want to put them on that fixed all-in. So 30 cents is the adder. That's essentially basis and the fees. And what you need is to read this blue portion, which is a commodity. And I'm going to go on. This is the NYMEX market, if you can see. 20.57 is the NYMEX price. So if 20.57 is the NYMEX, I'm just reading the NYMEX, by the way. This is actually all-in retail price for a specific territory. I'm just actually trying to build it for another market, which is Massachusetts. So just use the Louisiana market, average Louisiana market, which is close to Henry Hub. So base are relatively small, but 20.57 is the NYMEX traded at 20.57. And then if I want to build it, I add the 30 cents that I got from the auction to 20.57, I become to 50.57. So 30 cents is the adder in this example, and 20.50 cents is what I have in the picture here. Read this number. It says NYMEX number. The last row, it says NYMEX. The basis is negative. And second, actually. I'm sorry, NYMEX in this case is 1794. The commodity. You need to look at the commodity cost, not that's the NYMEX out of products. That's the total. So commodities. No, I made a mistake. Actually, no. That's the 20.57 is the commodity. Basis is minus 263. The sum is 1794. The labels are a little bit misleading. That's why I sort of got confused. But yeah, the last column is the NYMEX cost, the energy cost. Energy plus basis is the supply. That should be supply. The blue should be supply. So that is, look at this example, for example, here, it's 25 minus 161 becomes 24. So the last two element will become the blue. So there's a labeling here that you need to change. But as you can see, you can read the NYMEX cost every month. And that's the basis of your calculation for NYMEX adder, because you have the adder. All you need is the NYMEX. And that's the way that you can sell a NYMEX adder product. If you have the adder, if you have, there's a matrix, and we look at the matrix, and the matrix come back, and right now we don't actually have a variable matrix. We don't offer NYMEX adder products on matrix. A little more complicated, as I said. So we're just building the energy, the electricity one first, and then hopefully we'll add something for the gas. However, you can see the numbers here, and you can see what's NYMEX being traded at. So very similar concept. It's a matter of just understanding the pie. What is the pie, the supply pie made of, and what elements are fixed and what elements are variable. The variable you should read from this graph. That's the bottom line. The fixed, you need to be adding it on top of the variable. We actually track basis, but it's harder to come up with basis. So we are still validating and trying to find better sources. But this is basis. This is the orange is the basis. There is a market for basis. Just it's less active, and it's not as active as the commodity itself, and there's less trades. But there's basis can be hedged as is clear. And there's a market we have. So if you look at different states, if you go and essentially, let's look at PA. Yeah, you can see different bases here. And again, it's just a matter of like the data is like very sparse. So it's not statistically very reliable yet, but the commodities is easier to track. So it's a product. Basis is a product. Okay, so any feedback and what you want to be discussed, it doesn't have to be right this moment, but you can send a note to our support team and request certain things that needs to be discussed, and we schedule and plan it. As I said, this is your call. I want to make sure that more of you would utilize this 45-minute training session, and don't waste your time. So yeah, we appreciate your feedback. I think one of the things that I wanted to cover before we actually end this call is our homepage. The landing page of the dashboard is almost about to be finalized. We're doing a lot of testing right now. It's going to fundamentally change, and I'm very excited to look at this new layout that we've developed. And it's very analytical. It's a lot of data and insight, markets. It's very customizable. There's two things that I think we are focusing on, two major things. One is customization of the layout, that you can build your reports the way that you want it. You can put the column that you need. You can sort it the way that you need. You can have your own structure of representing data. The second thing is alerts and notification would be available. And the task would be right on the spot. The commission would be, the placement of the elements is very thoughtful. And I think we spend a lot of time, and it's been about 2 months that we have been working on this sort of landing page, but it will be changing very soon. You would see a new landing page. I think the next 2 weeks we should be able to roll it out. And I don't know, the plan is to roll it out to selected users to test first, or all in first, but You would be you'll be liking this new layout. I think we presented it a couple times before, and we got some feedback. All of this feedback was implemented, and hopefully we continue to listen to you guys and make it a perfect homepage for you. And the goal is also to spot opportunities and give it to you and make you more successful. We want you to be the winner, the big winners of this industry. So I appreciate the time spent here. Again, one last time, if there's any questions, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, we join together next week, same time.